What possesses a young woman doing well at school, with everything going for her, to abandon this country and travel to Syria? That was the question surrounding the disappearance of 3 East London teenagers earlier this year, and it was one that our guest editor Miriam Gonzalez wanted us to try and explain. More than 60 British women and girls are thought to have travelled to Islamic State-controlled areas of Syria, and others have been targeted by IS recruiters. We've spoken to one who was contacted over the internet. We're not naming her, but she's one of dozens who've been supported by the Unity of Faiths Foundation, which fights radicalisation through football.
It must have started with the 3 girls from Bethnal Green that left. I guess that sparked the curiosity. Why are they going? I was really curious about the whole issue of it, really. And I didn't start off with the intention of, I'm going to go there, definitely. Let me just think about it for a little bit. I was on Twitter usually, and I guess I went into it like that. And then obviously my Snapchat must have been in my Twitter bio, and they contacted me on that. And it wasn't really as cliche as people think it was. It wasn't a sort of, hey, come join us type thing. It was more of a, hey sister, how are you doing? Are you well? Mashallah, all these things. And it's like a conversation with your friend. It's like a normal thing, and you start to think, oh, maybe it is normal. And then it's one of those things where if you talk to someone every day for weeks, you're going to build a relationship with them. You're going to care for them, even if they don't care for you. And then, the questions started dropping, the little... Maybe I would be like, oh, so are you married or something over there? And they'll be like, oh, yeah, but it's okay. They care about your opinion over here. It's not like how it is back in the UK where, people don't like you and people are shunning you just because you're Muslim. And it was glorified, I guess. It was made to seem like it was this promised land and everything's perfect there and your whole life's problems will go away. I sort of sat down and thought about it. I was like, wait, but, if I go over there, then... what about football, really? I guess if I have 3 kids and a husband, am I really going to be able to continue living my passion? And the thing about this team is it's a family, really. Everyone's together. You have somewhere where you are accepted and where everyone does love you. And once you have a place to go like this, then you won't even be brought to think about that kind of thing.
Well, we're joined now by 2 British Muslim women, Umra Butt, who's 17 and a member of the Youth Parliament, and also an ambassador for Tough FC, a football team offering support to teenagers who've been radicalised or contacted by IS. And from Birmingham by Laura Z McDonald, who's a director at Connect Justice, an organisation working on fighting extremism. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Umra, how common are the sorts of conversations that we just heard that girl talk about, where an IS recruiter is targeting a young woman in this country?
I think even though it may be hard to believe, they are quite common. These things happen on a daily basis. The interview that we just previously heard is quite general, and it is shocking to hear, but it is quite general. These things happen every day, and the Unity of Faiths Foundation has been tackling this for a long period of time.
But the way it was described there was a normal conversation, and there must be elements, though, that come into it of radical ideology. It can't always be as sort of normal and mainstream as she just described.
I think in the beginning stages, I would have to agree with the girl that was in the interview. I think it does start off with the how are you and building that connection with the person. And I think all these things like the general comments and stuff, that creates the attachment between the 2 people. And then maybe there are some radical kind of comments made here and there, but they kind of slipped in a way that it's a conversation where you wouldn't even realise. So I think I would have to agree with how the conversation went.
Laura McDonald, I know you've looked at some of the messaging that is around. How is it framed?
Well, it's quite interesting what Umra and your interviewee have said. The framing is often not radical to begin with at all, and that comes afterwards. People don't have to be radicalised to be drawn in. So there can be loads of different things that the propaganda taps into, different interests, the idea of sisterhood, adventure, society building, this idea of a utopian. But crucial to all of this is the messaging that you are wanted. You will belong with us. And I think that's one of the key crucial areas that we need to talk about.
And yet there's a very big gap, isn't there, between hearing that sort of thing, being influenced that sort of thing, and actually making this momentous decision to travel to these parts of Syria, as we know young people have done. I mean, these are educated, informed young women who surely would know what Raqqa is going to be like when they get there.
I think once you've started building relationships and they're friendly and they're supportive, the idea that somehow there's counter-propaganda, that there's lies being spread about IS and other groups, it becomes easier to believe in them. And when everything's presented black and white, and social media is so instantaneous and very it taps into the way people are communicating, particularly young people are communicating all the time, and therefore it isn't that much of a leap. You can get on a plane quite easily to Turkey, you can take a bus, and you can end up in Syria. So actually, although it feels like from the outside momentous decisions and ideology, a lot of the time it's just not that complicated, as Umra was saying.
But then, Umra, should we see these young women as making active, informed choices, or should we see them as being brainwashed?
I think that's a difficult question. I feel like we have to focus on why these kids are attracted to Syria in the first place. We've got to see why they want to go there. You've got to look at the fact that they don't have a future. They feel like they're not welcome. They're not. They don't feel like they're. I don't feel like they feel like they're welcome, and that kind of attracts them to it. And I wouldn't call them informed decisions, but I'd say that it's the only place that they feel accepted, and that's why they.
But why is that the case? Because often these are girls who are doing well at school, who look as if they have everything going for them.
Well, I think if we look at the media right now and just general society, there's a lot going on around Islam and Islamophobia, and once you've got to understand that at a young age where you're vulnerable to all these things, you've got all this happening around you, and there's Islamophobia, and you can have racist slurs thrown at you for no reason, and then you lose that sense of welcoming and you look towards other things, and that's what the Unity of Faith Foundation does. We work towards helping these people instead of kind of pushing them away.
But Laura McDonald, there'll be plenty of people who are subjected to all kinds of Islamophobic slurs who would never dream of making these sorts of choices.
That's true, but this post 9/11 generation have been brought up in a very heightened negative atmosphere, and when you do look at the messaging that's coming from government, from the media, it is about belonging, and that's the common thread in all of these conversations, both the pull and push factors. It's about belonging and how you fit in, and that taps in and creates vulnerabilities that can then be played upon.
So then the way to fight it then, for the anti-radicalisation agenda,
Sure.
What is the lesson? That there has to be a lot more of the "you belong here" type of ideas.
Yes, and this isn't just about Muslim kids. I think it's a problem that we have about including young people generally in the political processes, in building resilience and confidence, that people have a stake in our society, that you can belong, that you can change things, and that there's a space for you. So at Connect Justice, we're often working with diverse young people, not just Muslims, around other things, extremism, but also around healthy relationships, about political participation. So there's a bigger conversation about how we can empower young people to belong.
Laura McDonald, Umra Butt, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
The time's 20 to 9.